We got Ben Patrick, knees over toes guy. He was still very early on in his career, but he was very interested in the product because it fit into his regimen. And he started producing a bunch of content, which was super cool. As that started going, Joe Rogan saw him, and that's what got Joe Rogan to buy it and talk about it a few times on his podcast and stuff.
All right, Paul, you went from 0 to 13.5 million in the first 18 months of your business. Describe that feeling.
Oh, it's crazy. I mean, it was a rocket ship in the best and worst way. I mean, in general, that was COVID. So we launched October of 2020, which, as everyone remembers, or I don't know, maybe blocked out of their memory, was a wild time. And
dramatic.
Yeah. We thought we were late because we're in the fitness industry. I was actually working another job until COVID hit. I was a product designer. So I was working at another startup that ended up going under. And I was like, if it goes under, I am going all in on this. And that happened. And so I spent like the next 6 months like hurrying because I thought, nobody knew what was going on with COVID. I thought it was going to be like a 6-month year thing. I'm not sure. Everyone's working out at home. And I'm like, oh my God, we're missing all this. So we launch. And I remember very vividly, like we launched. My mom bought like 4 of them. I'm like, thanks, Mom. You're the best. My business partner's mom bought like 6. I was like, okay, it's a pissing contest now. I'm in. And then, we started some like social drum up, and that kind of did a little bit. Over like a week, we probably sold, I don't have the exact numbers, but let's say like 30 units. And we're like, sweet, now what do we do? And the next week it started kind of petering off a little bit. But that's actually when I hit up Taylor, and I was like, hey, man, I remember we talked about those like Facebook ad things you're doing or something. You want to tell me more about that? And that's kind of when we got into, I started learning, still am learning, but a bunch on that side. And we started turning that on. And once we got that running, that's when it was like a rocket ship, where it was kind of like a bit of a money printing machine, a lot more than I think I realized it. And, we had one of our like third partners, who's more of a silent partner, had a warehouse to have everything. And we had that. We were all more remote. We had our factory set up. And so it was kind of like okay, well, let's start placing orders and everything. And stuff I feel like things just grew so quickly. It was kind of like learning the steps of business and e-com on hard/fast mode in like one of the craziest environments. And I don't think I really realized that until it started catching up with us a bit in like the second year, to where you get into those hard cash flow problems and inventory problems and all that kind of stuff. But yeah.
You should probably describe for the audience what MonkeyFeet is.
Perfect product for the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so if you're the U.S. Customs and Border, MonkeyFeet is monkey's feet. And they took our first container and totally went through it all because we thought we were just shipping in animal parts. But
oh my God,
that's a real
hilarious.
story.
That's fire. I didn't know that.
Yeah. We're like, what's happening? And this is our first time importing. And we're like, what's happening? We're like, well, apparently. No, but so MonkeyFeet's like the first device to let you lift dumbbells with your feet. You can also lift kind of anything. It has like a clamp on the bottom of it, so you can lift kettlebells, barbells, all kind. You can put bands in it. But yeah, it's meant to turn your normal stack of dumbbells into something that you can use for your lower body just as much as your upper body. So you can do things like leg extensions, leg curls. You can work your hip flexors. You can do weighted pull-ups, hanging ab raises, all kinds of stuff. I always say it's like you can do as much stuff with it, with your legs, as you can with your hands. It's like you can do so much with a dumbbell with your hands. And so we that's our patented product. We started the company off that. We're now working on like other products, expanding into like innovating other gym equipment. But yeah, at the time of COVID and all of that, it was the perfect product because you had so many people working out from home. They already had dumbbells usually, or they were buying dumbbells for the home. That was like the first thing. And
so crazy.
Yeah. And for a lot of people, I think the first or like foot in the door thing is when you get people that really miss using the hamstring curl machine or the leg extension machine. That's like the big thing. And it's hard to justify having it home. And they're like, oh, I can have this thing and just do my hamstring curls. And then they start to realize all the other stuff you can do.
Perfect moment with such a novel product. Yeah, I remember one of the things that we were doing alongside you. Love that you're giving us some love on Facebook ads, helping take things off. But with you guys specifically, influencer seeding was such a like your numbers with influencer seeding, what we see across other clients was significant. Nothing short of significant,
Bonkers.
right? Perfect. Yeah, perfect moment. Super novel product. People are like, "What the heck is this?" And people are posting about it like crazy. But that ultimately, allowed for a ton of organic rolling and a ton of content to then obviously repurpose into our paid media efforts. But yeah, what were some wins that you felt like came from seeding and how that impacted the business?
Yeah, it's interesting. I do think seeding for a product like this ends up working really well because it's something you see and very quickly people usually get, especially with like UGC stuff. So like that lended so well to us, which was really cool because that ended up working in the ad account. But I mean, yeah, to give you guys the credit where credit's due, once we got seeding going, that's, I guess the journey of some of the big wins in the first like year or two was first we were doing the seeding and I can't remember. I think we ended up seeding this guy or he saw it from a seeded person, but we got Ben Patrick, knees over toes guy to like
seeded.
Was it seeded? Okay.
Yeah.
Boom. There you go. And so like he was still very early on in his career. I remember him being at like 150,000 followers or something. He was small, not still doing good stuff, but very small. Now he's in the multi-millions of followers. He's huge, but he was very interested in the product because it fit into his regimen. And he ended up getting in contact with us and we started working with him heavily. He started producing a bunch of content, which was super cool, which was worked in the ad account.
Crushed in the ad account.
And then, the big win to where if you don't know who that is, because that is slightly more niche. As that started going, Joe Rogan saw him, and that's what got Joe Rogan to buy it and talk about it a few times on his podcast and stuff. And that was
like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, I think
just organically.
We're at 4+ times now, which all organic. Which is cool. And that
and
was
then
that
he
was
brought
crazy
on Ben
times.
Patrick as a guest, like a couple of years later, right? Like it's like full circle moment.
Yeah, exactly. And it's that part has been really nuts because you don't get a lot of influencers or moments to where you literally watch the ticker just like quadruple for months. And that's the kind of thing that happened with him. And, we messaged him a few times and he was really nice about us using the content and stuff for a little while. And we have him on the website. And he actually bought the newer version. So we came out with, instead of needing a dumbbell, we have a version that uses plates. So it's like an adjustable dumbbell for your feet. And he bought that as well and then talked about it on the podcast. So all of this kind of cascaded from initial seeding stuff, which is something you don't really think about when you initially sign up for it. Not like, oh yeah, we do this. And then Joe Rogan talks about it. Right. But it's the coincidental things that end up happening that definitely helped a lot.
Well, in today's world too, like you can just kind of to double click on that point, like you can research a lot of those things. So instead of saying, oh, I want to end up on the Joe Rogan podcast or get Joe Rogan as an influencer, it's like, who is influencing Joe Rogan? Who does he follow? Like a lot of those things can be so easily done in today's world versus like 10 years ago. It's a lot harder to find who's Joe Rogan following and like actually consuming rather than like what his actual numbers say on his profile, right? So
yeah,
crazy story.
Yeah, so just do seeding with kinship and you'll end up on the most popular and most listened to podcast in the world.
Exactly,
we guarantee it.
Yeah, exactly. As long as you can get that in writing, I think that's an amazing piece.
Yeah. Sales will significantly increase.
No, not the main point for sure. But I mean, the downstream effects of seeding for sure is gonna, throw gas on word of mouth, and you never know who's going to be talking about it and who those people are talking to. So it's inevitable. There's going to be a halo effect to seeding. Long story short, there that has significant implications for your business.
How many product iterations did you do before you actually launched? Like you're a product design, like you said at the beginning, you're a product designer at a failed startup. Your engineering degree at UCLA, correct?
Yeah.
And that's where you met Taylor, and you guys were boys on a bachelor party and talked about Facebook ads.
Go Bruins.
Let's go, bro.
Let's go, bro.
So what was like the initial inception of the idea?
Yeah. The the amount of iterations question is crazy because I've never really thought about it like that because it's so many small ones. But so how the idea started was from my co-founder. So he was a pro boxer, pro MMA fighter. Tore his ACL in 2017 or something, and was at the gym a few months after surgery, just trying to do his PT and stuff. Packed gym, 5 o'clock, everything's taken type of a deal, but like there's always dumbbells. And so he's like, I wish I could just lift a dumbbell with my feet just so I could do my PT real quick. And he's like, oh, that would be cool. And started thinking about it. Long story short, I raced dirt bikes with his uncle, and he was talking to his uncle about it. And he was like, oh, you should talk to Paul. He's a product designer, mechanical engineer. He might be able to help you. We start talking. And before this, I had a couple of other, I wouldn't even call them ventures, but entrepreneurial curiosities of like, I started like a t-shirt company and a couple of other little things. So I had this itch. I was still just like figuring out where it was coming from kind of a deal. And when this came up, I was like, okay, I think I get the idea. And I started thinking about it. I was like, I can help you. And then I got to the point where I was like, we should just go 50-50 on this. Cause like I'm in and I think we can blah, blah, blah. I think we can go for it. And so for like 2 years, I was designing it like nights and weekends with his input and everything. Wow. To where, yeah, it was, and it starts slow, but then it ended up getting like I used to work a job. I live in Pacifica now, but I live near San Francisco, and I used to work a job down in Mountain View. And so I would take the train. It was like an hour and a half each way. And so I would be working on it the entire time to and from work. And then when I got home, and yeah, it's hard when the cool thing about other startups, when you work in it, they're small companies and I'm like, I'm working on this other thing. You mind if I like use the 3D printer? They're like, oh yeah, I don't care. And it's like, you mind if I use this, that, and the other? So I had the machine shop making parts for me, the 3D printer going, and we iterated a ton on it. I wish I had it close, but the first iteration is literally looks like just like a flat piece of board with like straps going up and straps going like nylon, like shoelaces basically going up and down. And it's come a long way from there. Yeah. Product design's a pain in the butt. And it's hard too, because with something like this, probably the biggest hurdle we've had with MonkeyFeet is, and it's very apparent, I guess, in hindsight, but you have to fit all these different types of dumbbells, and you have to fit all these different types of shoes and feet sizes, I guess. But it's really shoe sizes, because you can get like a women's size 5 with a huge running shoe, and the heel's like massive and really high and wide and everything. And then you can get a size 14 male with like a 0 shoe, like super flat, almost nothing, or barefoot, and they're like, the female shoe is bigger, right? And then you get like the neoprene coated dumbbells that are like short and kind of compressed versus bigger ones versus adjustable. And so fitting all of those things into one device was the hardest piece, and making it reliable and stuff. So yeah, took a long time.
2 years, lots of iterations, I'm sure. That's awesome.
I mean, one of the most incredible products I've seen created, definitely out of all the, not to show favoritism toward your product, out of all our clients, but I mean, it's super novel, man. And what a moment for you guys to capitalize on. I think it's definitely the most valued skill in D2C today, being able to create new products that that there's a demand for. I mean, what's more of a valued skill than that? But I'm curious, okay, going from 0 to 13.5, 18 months, where are you at today? Sounds like a perfect story here that you ride off into the sunset with, but what are some of the challenges that you face today at this point, and maybe some of the lessons you've learned along the way?
Oh yeah, lessons. That's a Bible full. But we got so at about 2-ish years, the growth started to slow. And I think the hardest part in hindsight is that we launched kind of at when other fitness industries were kind of having like, or companies were having like a peak, but they knew it was a peak and they knew where their floor kind of was. And so we were kind of launching at that point and getting spun up so quickly to it. We really didn't know what our normal was. And I think that was the hardest part for me personally, because I was learning so much about this. I knew the product side, but all the rest of it, and learning that and not really knowing what our normal was. And so after about like 2 years, it started to slow. Then we were ordering a lot of inventory. So cash flow got really tight as things started to slow. That got scary. We made every mistake in the book on like taking the merchant cash advance loans and like all that kind of stuff and just getting a bit over our skis there. But then course correcting over the next year or so. And yeah, I mean, I think from the Rogan pop and the COVID thing all kind of starting to come back down to earth, we've come down since those years. And now I think we're finally like reclaiming like our floor and our foundation and getting steady as a business too, and getting way better at inventory forecasting, cash flow forecasting, all of the like kind of basics of business, and really having, lean OpEx, everything set up so that we can start and grow from here. Sustainably is the plan. But yeah, the last couple of years have been hard. It's been, I feel like every year there's a new thing causing chaos. And, I know we were talking about it before this.
Nothing this year though.
No, yeah, this year's been super quiet. April 2025, nothing going on.
Nothing to worry about.
Yeah, exactly. And going off the what you guys, I appreciate the kind words about the product. It's interesting seeing the different founders and the different types, and really just like the different core businesses and what their strengths are, because you can kind of tell in the way they do things and what they play to where, I think we do some good marketing and we have you guys, but like that's just not our strength, our like strength coming into all of this. And we've definitely gotten better at it, but like product was definitely our strength, to where you see other companies that are so marketing focused and it's like they could sell water to a fish type thing. And it's just like you get the different blends, to where we really try to lean into the product side, because that's kind of what we're good at and what where we think we can bring the most value. And so it's been interesting kind of comparing and contrasting that with different business owners, especially because the product cycle is slow and it's hard, especially kind of to the extent we do it. I came from kind of like the automotive grade world, which is very rigorous, probably a little too rigorous for, dumbbells and weight stuff that you just use in the gym. But we end up taking a lot of time and consideration in building the product. So it does take longer cycles to make stuff. It's not just, let's pump out a new product every month. So that's one of the challenges as well.
When you listen to the 9 Operators podcast, they have a whole podcast about inventory planning, and all of them say that there is no science or secret to actually planning inventory and demand planning. Like there is no, it's like all gut feel. Like, yeah. And you listen to those guys and they talk about that at a high level, and you're hearing Mike Beckham with Simple Modern talk about, demand planning, and it's kind of like, yeah, there's not like a secret science for X equals Y formulaic approach to doing it. So it seems like I've heard that. Yeah.
Biggest challenge for us as a business, if you looked into the core of our business, we don't have a lot of LTV. You kind of you buy 1 or 2 MonkeyFeet. That's kind of it. We don't have a ton of other products. That's the piece we're working on, right? But, if kind of all things go right, they buy 2 MonkeyFeet and they say, see you later for a while, unless they buy it as a gift and stuff, but we have virtually no LTV. So when it comes to demand planning, it's not like a subscription protein powder to where you have new customer revenue, but you have tons of returning and you have a certain amount of churn, and forecasting still hard, but becomes a lot more reasonable to predict, to where we're like, you're trying to look a year out, and either I'm just not that good at it, or it's just, and we run we run the cost caps, and at an MER we like to hit, and we like to kind of just keep it there and keep it steady. And then the revenue just kind of rides its own wave a little bit and we adjust accordingly. But that part is just hard with the kind of business we have. So yeah, I agree. My biggest, I guess, recommendations for younger founders and stuff is just trying to find experts or people that you trust in the different things that you don't know. Obviously now there's ChatGPT and all that AI helper tools and everything. But yeah, I mean, early on, I went back to the people I worked with at the other startups, and I was like, who was doing like ops, demand planning, supply chain stuff? Oh, my buddy Cammy, yeah, he's the man. And I was like, cool, help me. And then he came and helped me, and now he actually works for us, which is awesome to where it comes full circle like that. And I was like, oh, I need help with this. I need help with this. And instead of trying to just reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, it's really hard. I mean, it's good to hear like, okay, you scaled to 13.5, and then what challenges are you facing? What I'm hearing is at some point it becomes harder and harder to acquire customers in the same way that you had been, right? And there's going to be a slowed growth rate at some point if, LTV isn't panning out and you have the super novel product. But at the end of the day, there's not a lot of opportunity for repeat rates unless, like you say, they're buying it for somebody else. And the reality is, like, as you acquire more customers, and when you first launch on Facebook, right, you're starting to optimize things initially, even though I remember your ad account was like at a 20 or 40x in week one. I was like, what is happening here?
That's also a guarantee that we give clients.
Yeah.
It's 20x in a Joe Rogan.
I remember Paul texted me. He's like, hey, is this good? I said, bro, I've never seen this. Let's rock.
No, I remember, dude, it was like the first, we had it at like $50 a day. And you're like, dude, put this up to 100. I'm like, 100? That sounds like a lot, man. I don't know, man. You're like, it's at a 20 ROAS. I'm like, I don't know what that means.
We got to spend more money.
Yeah. But, it's starting to optimize. And then you hit this, you start to really optimize as you get more growth there and you acquire more purchases. But at some point, right, you're getting further away from your core customer. And there is, the reality is there is a finite amount of customers out there. So with how Meta works, right, you're acquiring customers that are closest to your core customer. Your CPA, cost per acquisition, is going to be probably more efficient, and it will get harder as you continue to get out to the outer echelons of that core customer, and you get further away from who that is. Just within the reality that you have a finite amount of customers in this world, and when you take into consideration like your total addressable market, right? So with all those things, if that's the case, LTV becomes paramount for you to really survive long term and thrive and continue to grow. So in that, with you being, a product engineer, sounds like that is very fortunate for you. Is that something you're spending a lot of time on now and coming out with new products and really trying to get that LTV lift? Or what does that look like for you guys at this point?
Yeah, that's especially in like the last year, that's something we started focusing a ton on. And that's where it's hard because in this game, there's so much noise and shiny object syndrome and everything to where we have a small team. It's only three full-time, 2 part-time, and then agencies. So small team, but focus.
Lean OpEx. I love it.
Lean OpEx. Yeah. And so focus is the name of the game, to where we can't do everything. We shouldn't do everything. Even bigger teams, right? It's like pick the lanes that you're going to go down. And product design is definitely a big one. It takes a lot of time, and it takes like cash investment. Like every time you make a new product, you're cutting tools and molds. And then when you place your first order, you have what's called pipeline fill, to where you just kind of have stuff. You have like 500 to a couple thousand units that are just always going to be in the factory in the fulfillment center, just, making sure you don't run out. And so each time it's a step function of how much cost goes into creating new products. So it's hard, but yes, it is paramount to like what we're doing here. And it's something we're leaning into a lot and trying to double down on. It is definitely challenging though, even as a product engineer and trying to scale while doing everything else. It's probably like that piece is our biggest challenge. I'd say the two things we're trying to work on simultaneous is like that piece is the more long play and what we need to do in the next, 2 to 5 years for sure. And then it's like, in the meantime, what can we do from the marketing side and the business side to just, we have MonkeyFeet and MonkeyFeet Pro right now. And as you're speaking to, right, it gets harder and harder on just like seeding and Facebook ads. And you're getting the people, especially when we set the MER target, or ROAS target or whatever that we want to acquire people at. And that's like kind of as far as we're going to go. It's like you get to that point where it gets harder and harder. And then we have to come in and go, well, what else can we do to basically improve that? Not by just throwing extra dollars at. Is that better ads, better seating? Is this like an educational problem that we need to go out and convince more people of? Do we need to start being in like more retail and B2B locations just to get the spillover from ads and everything into where, it's, as you're saying, it's like you get to a certain point where you have a TAM problem, and TAM, total addressable market's always an interesting thing to think about, because it's like addressable is the operative word there, to where it's different than total market. Because if I could sit with every person and talk to them about MonkeyFeet and teach them and show them and let them use it, I'd be able to sell it to a lot more people than the people that, just see a guy doing a hamstring on Instagram and are like, I want that, or a hamstring curl, and like, I want that immediately, right? The difference between those is huge. So it's like, what do I have to do and our team have to do to start bridging that gap in the most efficient way? Because it's, Taylor, as you always say, it's the lowest hanging fruit, right? Sometimes you start getting to the point where it's like, okay, I can't reach these next set of fruit, but like if I just had a small ladder, opens up a whole nother set. So that's where we have to get creative and start working in different angles that work in conjunction with the rest of the stuff we already have set up in the systems and machine we already have going.
You could pause there.
I like that.
I like that. Snippet that. That was a solid one.
And we'll get some highlights on it.
Yeah.
Is there anything else we want to chat through specifically, C-Dub? Does anything else come to mind?
No, I mean, this is a good sweet spot for the length of the episode. 27 minutes right now.
PJ, you brought the heat, bro. Did you prepare? You did some meditation prior to this?
No, but I do meditation daily, ready to go. My 4-hour morning routine, took 5 ice baths, hit the sauna, hot yoga. I was ready to go.
That's how you go 0 to 13.5. If you're going to run a business, you got to do that.
Yeah, exactly. You can't not.
Let's just wrap it with one piece of advice for maybe entrepreneurs that are in the fitness industry or even just outside of fitness. What would be your piece of advice? What we like to call your bottom line advice.
My bottom line advice.
You don't know. You don't listen to our podcast, but it is called the bottom line.
I didn't listen because I wanted to come in and I wanted to be so raw and,
Yeah, you're full shit.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, next time you ask a question on a call, I'm just be like, go listen to the pod, bro. We talked about
this. Oh, that's so good. Bullying me harder. I'd say my bottom line advice. My main piece of advice, I think, to honestly any founder, anyone getting into entrepreneurship or just wanting to start this stuff, I think like there's so much you can say, but my main thing is try as hard as you can to follow a passion or something you really like. I feel like there's a lot of advice out there on not mixing work and play and all of that. And I get that, but when stuff gets hard and at some point, if you're doing it right, you're going to have sleepless nights and it's going to suck and it's going to be really, really hard. But if you're doing something you at least kind of like, even when you're losing, it still kind of feels like winning. And it's hard to do and it's not guaranteed. And maybe it's not the best business opportunity, but I don't know. After 5-6 years of this, it's definitely something I think about a lot, to where it's like the more you can like your day to day, the less the numbers matter.
It's enthusiasm, not discipline.
Yeah.
There you go.
Exactly.
Don't get good at something you don't like. That was shout out Robert Lagsay to my pops.
Oh, hell yeah.
Advice that he always says.
That's solid, right? It's like pretend like you're a band and you make one song that you don't really like and it becomes the hit that every time you play live you have to sing and you hate it, right? That's heavy.
Yeah. Bro, by the way, we need to make that bottom line advice the little way that he's saying that as the tagline on the pod now.
I'll make a jingle for you guys. I got it.
All right, we should probably end this before this goes off the deep end.
Oh, that's the
Paul,
best part.
appreciate you coming on. Where do people find you if they hear this app and want to connect with you and ask questions? Hear you sing to them late at night?
I can sing to them for sure if they get lonely. Honestly, reach out via email, paul@animalhousefitness.com, or I guess on LinkedIn. I'm not on Twitter. I'm not a Twitter boy, unfortunately. I'm more of a picture guy, so more Instagram. So yeah, find me on LinkedIn. Paul Jackson. There's only 10,000 of those on there.
All right. Thanks, everybody.